Have you ever thought about quitting your business, not just in a fleeting moment of frustration, but in a deep, overwhelming way when the pressure just feels unbearable? Maybe it's unexpected challenges all piling up at once. Maybe it's clients who are unhappy but won't say why. Or maybe it's strangers online who seem to have an opinion about everything you do. And as all of this builds day after day, it starts to feel like walking away is the only option. Our guest today, Dielle Charon, knows this feeling firsthand. She's built a 7-figure business, helped over 300 clients, and grown a podcast with over 150,000 downloads. But even at the height of her success, she's faced criticism from people who don't even know her, difficult moments with clients, and personal life challenges that made her question everything. Dielle shares how she's navigated these moments, built resilience, and continued to create a business that matters, not just for her bank account, but for the people and community that she serves. So if you've ever felt like quitting your business, this conversation might just be exactly what you need to hear today. Dielle, tell us about that specific moment or moments during your business journey where you really seriously considered quitting altogether. And you came so close, but you didn't. What was happening at that point in time?
It was actually several things happening. One of my thought processes are business owners never leave their business or want to quit because of one thing. They always want to quit because of multiple things happening at once. And even if they fix one part of their business, they still have 7 other things. So I just wanted to say that as a preference. But for me, it was when I was struggling with my launches. I was also then dealing with team issues. And then I was dealing with a little bit of online hate at the same time and client drama. And then I was dealing with just having the same business and the same offers for years and not having like any newness and struggling with that all at the same time.
So, was this particular moment where everything was happening, was it recent? When was this happening?
Sure. So it was last year in 2024 where I know a lot of online business owners, I call it like a reckoning, right? Where they had like this spiritual awakening or this like emotional awakening where they were just questioning everything. And I think it was the first year that 100% of the year we were out of the pandemic, like sparkliness, right? Like we were out of the pandemic ease or flow or like momentum. And so I think we were getting out of it in 2023, but we were 100% out of it in 2024. So it was around that season. And of course, I want to be clear, like I've had many times throughout my business, especially when I was first starting, where I thought I should quit. And I'm so glad I didn't. But when I was fully operational and still making a lot of money, like we made $1.4 million last year cash. So still when I was making a lot of money, I was like, oh no, I don't know if I can keep doing this. And it was because of that, like, roundabout where I'm just like, it's whack-a-mole. I don't know if I can solve all these problems at once.
For you, like internally, emotionally, what thoughts did you grapple with? Like, what was the emotional experience of it when this was happening last year?
Yes, I remember I was actually in this office. It was like maybe 2 weeks before my 29th birthday. And I've had so many like 30 scaries. It was right around then where I had a launch where I was like, okay, I don't think I'm going to hit my goal. And so this was like last August. And I just remember like having like the classic kitchen floor breakdown and being like, there's so many issues, there's so many problems. I also had a tax bill that I was trying to pay as well from my accountant's failures. Again, it was more the round table of problems. If I just had one, I would have been a lot more confident, but it was the round table that really took me out.
This is so interesting because it's not something that your audience that we see in real time. It's only maybe afterwards when we start to see like glimpses of it and then you share more openly about what had happened. So I think this would be actually a really great segue into the piece of content we're going to be discussing today. So could you give us a quick high level overview of what exactly went down in this podcast episode?
Sure. So in this podcast episode, I just shared the good, bad, and the ugly of what happened. I shared the good, which is we made great money. I shared the bad, which is I had lots of failure in 2024, from the tax bill to launches to some of the other things I experienced. Like I put out a certification and my clients loved it in the certification, but it didn't really sell well. So some sales attempts that didn't work. And so I shared all of those. And then I also shared the bad and the ugly. So, like things that really hurt me deeply, things that were painful, things that took me like a while to recover from. And I just wanted to speak to like the whole, what do you show when it's happening versus what do you show behind the scenes and da 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 da. I know there's like a debate on like, we want people to be more transparent, or we want creators to be more transparent, or we want CEOs to be more transparent about what's going on behind the scenes. And I find that like I do it, but you have to like catch it in the moment, right? I think I even made some Instagram stories on like we didn't hit our launch goal, but it was an Instagram story. It wasn't like a full-blown email to my whole list. So I think like also a lot of creators, we have that duality of like where like often we are sharing what's happening in the moment. It's just that where are we sharing it and how are we sharing it?
I'm curious to know, why did you ultimately decide to create this podcast recap in the
Mm.
end?
Hmm. I think it's cathartic, a little therapeutic, just to put it all out there. I also think, especially with me, and Cheryl and I have known each other for a very, very long time, which I'm so grateful to know you for so long. I I don't know how this image has been created. I kind of blame my creative director. It's her fault. But like I'm kind of seen as like the Beyonce of the coaching industry. And I've been trying really hard to be like, hey, I'm not perfect. Not from the perspective of like self-deprecation, but it's not helpful when clients put me on a pedestal. Like that's not helpful. Like there have been, going back to the good and the bad and the ugly, there have been harmful ramifications of when clients put me on pedestals. So I always just like to take myself off as many opportunities as I can, while also not like bleeding over my audience and talking about all my problems. It's funny, I had a client say to me last year, she said, everyone has been so transparent about their failures. I don't know if I believe in the coaching industry anymore. And I was like, oh no, like, don't not believe in the coaching industry anymore just because we're transparent. So there's always a double edged sword. Like, I also want to inspire people to still come in this industry at the same time. So, yeah.
Yeah, as you were sharing about the putting coaches or your favorite people on the internet on a pedestal, that makes me think of how when we do that, it's like as soon as we sense one hiccup or slip up from them, then like we just like go completely like 180 on them. I feel like people make such a jarring like blanket statements about the people they used to love, and I think that's the hard part of sharing openly, transparently about what actually is going on, because people's opinions can be so flippant, and then the things that they say to you can also be very like can be really harsh.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's
Yeah.
very sticky. Like, if someone has a thought about you, it could be very hard to change that thought back. Yeah, like that's the other part. Like once they think of you in this way, it could be very hard to think about somebody else in a different way. So like I remember this one very, very popular influencer coach. She and her husband got brought down, like legally on Reddit, like got brought down. And from the jump, I'm gonna out myself a little bit here, but from the jump, I was just like, oh, I don't know if I believe that. Like, I don't know if I believe like the all the legal things or the lawsuits that are coming. I don't know if I believe it. I decided that within the first 5 minutes, and then I kept with that for the 6 months that they were dealing with all of this mess. And I've had friends who were the opposite. They decided in the first 5 minutes, oh yeah, they're guilty, and they kept with that for the first 6 months, and they didn't change it. They like we both didn't change our minds. And so like those first impressions too really, really matter. Yeah, unfortunately.
And these are such real lived experiences that business owners and entrepreneurs will eventually navigate and deal with, especially when you grow to maybe like your level, for example, or beyond. You're going to get more and more of these experiences and people just being mad at you for whatever reason in their minds. And I think this is actually a really nice transition into one particular segment of your podcast episode that I think actually ties in very nicely. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen and let's play it out loud, and let's just like chat about it in real time.
I would say one of the uglies from 2024 is the criticism that I have received. So I have had hate in different capacities, online hate, client hate in different capacities all this year, top to bottom. And it was very difficult for me. And over the summer, and I'll speak about this too, but over the summer, I actually went into a little bit of a depression over it. And I want to be clear, we live in a country where there's free speech, and I'm glad people are articulating themselves. And I want to say too, like the feedback that I got, it actually was funny. Now I can laugh at it. Of course, when it was happening, I couldn't see the value in it, but now I can laugh at it. But the feedback that I got was Dielle's a great coach. She gets her clients amazing results, right? Like I walk into the programs and all of these things were amazing. And obviously her processes work. So I'm like, okay, so they can at least admit that I'm a good coach. All right, at least we're there. But it was more just like style things. They would say that I'm tough or aggressive, or it was all just style related. And I just really felt a little attacked as a Black woman. And one of my most popular reels, going back to content, one of my most popular reels were, am I mean or am I Black? And am I being viewed as a tough person because I actually am tough? And I think, of course, my style and my personality leans that way, but how much of it is actually microaggressions towards Black women? So that was one of the things that I really had to sit and process. And it's just one of the things that any successful Black woman is going to be called mean. And there's really nothing I can do about it. I think with online criticism, a lot of it is just like there's nothing I can do. There's nothing I can do to change their minds. Like my people pleaser will come out, and so I've really had to sit with allowing people to have their thoughts and emotions about me in this particular capacity. So
All right, DL. What was your first thoughts when we just listened back to this part of the episode?
I have already grown so much from that. It's already March and I record that in December, and I can like still hear the pain in my voice and the frustration in my voice. And I'm like, "Oh, I want to give that version of me a hug so bad." But I'm so glad, and everything I said in that podcast episode is still very very true. Oh my gosh. But yeah, like you could still hear a little bit of pain versus I think I'm a lot stronger even 3 months from then. So I just wanted to say that too. Like you're going to continue to get stronger if you go through something like this.
Yeah, and I can only imagine a lot of the listeners of this show are likely at the earlier stages of the
Mm.
journey compared to you. And so they might think like, "Oh my gosh, like if I had to go through that, I don't know if I can do this." What what would you say to someone who is a little bit worried about the hate or judgments from people they know or don't know, as they pursue their coaching journey or business journey?
I can say this with a full chest, and this is what my mentor said to me. And she's had 5 times the hate that I have had, like just so much more than me. I can say this with a full chest, and she said this to me: hate will not take you out of business. It won't take you out of business. It feels like it will, right? So like, your comment section on your YouTube videos or your comment section on your TikTok, or people, I just saw somebody on TikTok doing a stitch calling somebody else a scammer. Like all of those things can feel like it's going to harm your business, but it really doesn't. Like it really, really doesn't. Or like bad Google reviews or whatever it is, like those things really don't harm your business as much as you think that they do. And so that's something that I really had to learn, is like, because my main thought was like, I don't want these people to take away my business, or I don't want this bad client to spread rumors about me or gossip about me. And my mentor, who's had 5 times the hate, she said, during my biggest hate year, I made $12 million. I was like, oh. But she was like viscerate. Like there was YouTube videos, Reddit threads about her, Instagram comments about her, Instagram videos going on about her. Like it was everywhere, left and right. People were talking terrible things about her. And she, on her podcast reviews went down. Like it was everywhere. She made $12 million, even with all of that online hate. And so just allow that to like think about, okay, could you still have a successful business even with this hate is like the first layer. The second layer I would say too is you do get stronger. I think one of the points and purpose of business is to develop skill sets. Like that's one of my beliefs. It's like you're in business to develop skills that you will have for the rest of your life. Now, if a friend doesn't like me, if a family member doesn't like me, I'm like, oh, that's nothing. That's nothing compared to somebody who paid you money making, saying things about you on the internet. And so you will learn, you're like, you need to learn this skill. You need to learn this skill fundamentally as a human. And you're just so happily learning it in business. But if it's not business, it's going to be family that's not going to like you, a friend that's not going to like you, something at your job, somebody's not going to like you. You're going to have to deal with this skill regardless. And I think business is just an opportunity to learn it sooner and learn it in a different level. And so that's what I would say. And then the third thing I would say too is online hate has allowed me to love myself more. Something that happened, I'm a little embarrassed to say, but something that happened was there's this particular person that makes a lot of content about coaches and how terrible they are. And she made a video about me and my friend. And you can't search it because it's not our names. Like you would have, she like takes out your name. So you would have to go through her whole archive. And so that's a part of it. So I asked, and it's a YouTube show. It's a YouTube show with like over 10,000 subscribers, like a pretty large show. So I asked, I said, hey, thank you so much for making this video, tearing me and my friend down. Sounds great. I would love to be interviewed on your show. It's a little bit of the energy of if you got something to say it to my face. And I want to be clear too, my trauma response is to fight. So I'm not a flighter, and Cheryl, you know this about me. Like I'm not a flighter. I don't run away. I will fight you. I will fight you. So I have to like manage that and be like, DL, not everything is a fight. And not physically fight, don't get me wrong, but like I don't have any problem confronting. I will reach out to you. I will message you. Like I'm like, no, let's talk. Like if you have something to say, let's talk about it. And she agreed. So we got on the show and she asked me, and it's a live YouTube. So it was not edited. It was in front of her whole audience that hates the coaching industry. It was a very confrontational place. And you would not, like, you wouldn't believe it. I had an answer for every one of her questions. I had a decision for every one of her like points or things. So she would ask me, "Well, why are your prices this way?" And I would say, "Because of the cost of service. I have a team to pay to deliver what we promise. Like, I actually only make 30% profit on this product." Her face, she would be like, oh, okay, next question, right? Like, and it was that the whole time. And I had answer after answer after answer. And I walked away from that and I got so many DMs on a hater YouTube channel. I got so many DMs of people being like, you handled that like a boss. You held your own. You had an answer for everything. She was like, you're not accredited. You're not a credible leader. I'm like, I have a master's degree in social work. I've dealt with the homeless population. I worked in a prison for 2 years. Like, what are you talking about? She was like, oh, I didn't. Like, it was that over and over for like an hour and a half. And I was just like, I love all of my reasons. If someone were to say, oh my God, DL, why did you do this? I would have a good reason that I love. And that's the last thing I want to share with everyone is we can't be good people. Like I find that coaches or creators or people that give freely for free, like this podcast, Cheryl, is free, right? It's free information. We cannot be bad people because we give so much away for free. We have so much service away for free. And you can't ever, like, I'm never worried about being caught off guard again. Like, that fear has just that's gone from me because I know that I love all my answers and everything is so well thought out. And all my intentions from my pricing to how I market to what I promise online to how I treat my clients to how I coach, all of that is so well thought out because I'm so anxious. Like, I love all my reasons. So, that's what I would say.
That was so reassuring even for me to hear as someone who has experienced a little bit of commentary from clients and strangers on the internet. That was so reassuring for me to hear. And it also is a great reminder to really assess like what are all of your reasons for every decision that you make in your business? Like, can you stand behind it? If not, maybe you should reconsider it before anyone comes at you.
Yep.
And that just reminds me of how, about, I think it was 2 years ago at this point, there was a client who, for me, she was secretly mad at me, and I had no idea. I
Mm.
had no idea until one day I saw a scathing Instagram post that was clearly directed at me. And my response was to fawn. It was to like, oh my, I wanted to fawn. That was my response. But for me, I think a lot. On one hand, although a lot of her comments, I had no idea that that was even her concerns or things that she was experiencing. Like these were things that were never communicated. But at the same time, there were parts of it where I thought about where could there be some truth to what she was saying, and how could that actually be room for improvement or things that I change about my business moving forward. So although that was a very painful incident for me, and again, there were things that were never communicated to me, but there were also things that I had to realize and learn. And since then, I had really been, I had made changes in my own business, the clients I work with, the things in my messaging and marketing, that I have been a lot more thoughtful about, just to make sure that everything reflects my values and what I can confidently deliver on. So I think that's why what you just shared was so resonant for me, because it's just, I think a reason why a lot of folks, and this goes back to quitting, I think, right? Quitting your business. I think on one hand, people quit because their business isn't creating the results that they want. But I think a reason why a lot of people quit is because they there are certain decisions that they made in their business that is creating a lot of like cognitive dissonance or internal friction for them.
Yeah, I think that too. I think though, you're right. Like if something happens, you do want to reevaluate. I have done that before where I would say about 75% of my decisions that clients have complained about, I have like, nope, I stand by that. And then 25%, I'm like, oh no, you have a point, right? Often that 25% doesn't make the client feel any better. They want 100%, right? But then that other 75%, like you actually stand by. But I have looked at 25% and I'm like, oh no, I do think I want to make XYZ change. So I did just want to say, like, that's a really good point too.
Going back to the earlier conversation around like moments when you really wanted to quit last year, is it possible to sense it in your content or the way you were showing up online? Did that reflect in your content at all, or the way you were showing up?
I think so. Yes. I said actually in this episode, I believe I said it in this episode towards the end, that I went through a depression. And it was also coupled because like all of this happened in August too. So in North Carolina, here in the States, it's very, very hot. I don't do well in the heat. So it's also, I realized I have summer seasonal depression. I know a lot of people get in the winter. I was diagnosed with it and everything. I definitely have summer seasonal depression. And so it was coupled with that. So instead of it coming out in my marketing, I actually think I just didn't show up a lot, which is very unlike me. And so I'm typically very consistent, extremely consistent, but I stopped showing up for a while. And so I wouldn't do, it would go days without doing Instagram stories. I would repurpose podcast episodes. That's kind of what it looked like. I would have clients DM me being like, hey, haven't seen you on the calls in a while. Cause I would have like coaches take my spot because I was just so sad. Things like that. That's how it would present. So for me, I would just completely pull back instead of like forcing myself to make content. I was just like, I don't want to make any.
I could only imagine some people thinking, oh, not showing up inconsistently, like having someone do your calls for you instead. Like, I think they would be like astonished to think that like it's possible to be inconsistent or not show up regularly or frequently, and still make money in your business. Why is it that for a lot of folks, maybe when they're experiencing, whether it be summer seasonal depression or whatever life event that they're going through, why is it that so many other people's businesses will literally crumble and they quit, but yours didn't? Why is that?
To pull a page out of someone Kirsten Roldan, to pull a page out of her book. Team, systems, and mindset. I have a team, I have systems, and I have mindset work where I was like, it's okay if I don't show up. I have people who could create content for me. I have an incredible coaching team. They're one of my favorite parts of my business that coach on my behalf. I actually don't have to. What I would say to a smaller creator or a smaller entrepreneur is, what would the bare minimum look like? So for me, that typically looks like no video. Like I can't do a lot of video. And so I would maybe just do some carousels online or maybe do some text on your Instagram stories. And so that would look like minimal viable to me. Something that a trick I've been telling a lot of my clients who do one-on-one calls, or maybe they do done for you work and they have, agency calls or whatever that is. A trick that a lot of people don't even consider is, I say, what if you tell your clients that you're just going to do audio only on your calls? What if they don't even have to see your face? Yeah. And it's funny, I'm working with a nutrition coach right now, and she's all about honoring yourself. That's a part of her like vibe. And I used to say this years, like for years. But then just recently, like over the past 3 months, I'm working with this new nutrition coach. She will message me like 5 minutes before our call, be like, hey, DL, just to let you know I'm audio only if you want to be audio only on Zoom. And like it's nice too, because I'm like, great, I don't want to have to show up either. And so what if you just did your calls audio only? Like, what if that's it?
Yeah, what do you think are some of the rules or boxes that coaches or business owners, entrepreneurs box themselves into? But like, it's a huge contributing factor why they eventually quit their business because they've constrained themselves so much.
I think about offer. Like if they took an offer for somebody else, like if like, oh no, I need a high ticket group mastermind. I tell, as somebody who has one, I'm like, what if that's not for you? Like, what if that isn't for you? Or they need to do a live event or they need to do a big conference, and they will like force themselves through that when that has nothing to do with their brand or their business or anything like that. Or I was actually talking to a friend. She was like, DL, you do so many speaking engagement. You're such a like a well-known speaker. And I do my own events. And I say, yeah, and I don't always like it. And she was like, what? And I think offer is one thing. Like how we make money, I think is a big contributing factor. Also, like where we post and show up on social media. It's funny, I was beating myself up recently for not showing up on threads. I'm like, oh, I gotta get on the thread game. But I don't really like threads. I don't really like the energy on there. I feel like people can be mean, and I just talked all about meanness on my podcast episode. But I just like I made a post about a few things on threads, and just the comments were crazy. I'm like, can we have civil discussion? So I'm like, I don't even want to be on here. And then I was like, wait a minute, is Jenna Kutcher on here? I looked and she isn't. I was like, Jenna Kutcher is not on threads. Why do I have to be on thread? I was like, oh, this is done. I'm not going to be on here. Or I'm only going to be on here if I think I have something really interesting to say. So I think the second place, so first place is offer, second place is like where we show up. I would say like that's often what it looks like versus what if we just always just operate it from our strengths? I like having a crazy busy business with live events and things like that sometimes. But it's interesting. I remember going back to offer and showing up. I remember that it was a season where it was like within my little side of the internet where you 100% had to have a live event for your big high ticket mastermind. Like it was like, oh, just like the requirement. And I did it twice and I was like, I hate this. It is very expensive. I don't think it actually services the client because they get all this dopamine at the live event and then they drop down to Zoom calls and then they get a little grumbly. I was like, I don't think this is useful. So I took it away. I took it away. And then I actually saw a lot of my other friends take away their mastermind live events too. And they just do like their one conference if they do that. And I was like, yeah, it's so much easier. And so it's little things like that where, like, look at your offer. Like, what are you selling and where do you think you have to include something? And like, or something I'm doing for my next mastermind enrollment is if you pay in full, you get a VIP day with me, which is very common. I'm like, I don't want to do that anymore. You get Voxer. And you can only send me a message every if a 2-minute message. That's it. If it's over 2 minutes, I'm not listening to it. That's what we're doing. And honestly, people have been loving that more. People will often love your idea and your version of it more because it's authentic and you'll sell it better and it's easier for you to deliver on. And so I think like that's something to think about too. When my masterminds didn't include the live event in them, people are like, oh, now I don't feel like I have to plan my whole calendar around this. I can just kind of join the mastermind. So it often will be better. But yes, I think there's so many opportunities to make an offer your own and make showing up your own. I think it's so important.
Yeah, I 100% second that. Because last year, 2024, yeah, last year, to your point about like what are your strengths and are you building an offer based off of your strengths or what works best for you? Last year, I I sold for a good duration of the year a quote unquote co-working offer where the client literally just co-works with me on their stuff on Zoom for an hour every week. And the rationale there was because I had people tell me I get so much done when I'm in your presence,
Mm,
Cheryl. And I'm like, okay, well, a lot of people are saying that, and a lot of people comment on how I get so much things done. And when I get my butt in seat, like I will type on the keyboard and get a lot of things done. And I was like, well, maybe I can help other people get things done just by me staring at them on the Zoom. So lo and behold, clients signed up for this co-working offer. And it was a really fun run while I focused on it until I decided that, okay, I think in the next phase of my business, it's not what I want to be known for. It's not the
mm,
signature offer for me, but it was a great trial when
mm.
it lasted. So I really love your points about offer and strengths, and then that will then influence how you show up, because when you have an offer that like works, so it's so complementary to your strengths, you're gonna want to sell it because no one else is selling that offer when it's your strengths. One thing that I think, touching on the point about like you don't have to do this, you can do it your way, and how a lot of people, the reason why we do think we box ourselves in a certain way because we see other people doing it that way and we compare, right? Comparisons is such a big thing that comes up for coaches, entrepreneurs, creators. I'm so curious to know, DL, what is your relationship with comparisons now versus the earlier stages? Like, what does comparisons look like for you right now?
Oh, it's so funny. I well, I think comparison used to look like having a big old coaching business. I remember there was this person who was my age. She also lived in my same state in North Carolina. She also was a another business and sales coach. She had a full-time job, just the way that I do, and she was killing it, like killing it. And we were in this like group chat together, and I was like, "What is she doing that I'm not doing?" And so how I got out of that was I journaled for 30 and I was just like, "Oh, DL, you're not an expert. Like you're not credible. They believe her, they're not going to believe you." So I journaled for 30 days straight on how I'm an expert, and then that's how I got my confidence back. That's how I got like, "Oh, I'm an expert." And then I had my biggest launch ever and I created so much momentum for myself. And it was actually when I launched Leads for Launching. That's actually when I launched Leads for Launching back in 2020, which was like I call it my breakout launch where people are like, "Oh, look at that DL person. I think she has something to say." I got so much visibility over that launch because I was talking about something different because I was believing that I was an expert for the first time. So I would say that was my first experience of it, but now I've definitely it's a ooh, okay, I'm gonna be honest. It's not comparison, it's more jealousy, which I don't know the difference. Do you have a difference?
I think jealousy for me, it's it's a bit more like green with envy kind of
Mhm,
vibe. Whereas
mhm,
like comparisons like, oh, it's a bit more neutral, it's a bit
mhm,
more laid back. That's how I see the
mhm.
difference in the word's energy.
I think comparison, now that you said that, is more about you. You're like, "Oh, what's wrong with me? What's da da da." But jealousy is more like, "Well, why do they get that? They
Oh yeah,
don't
that's a good
deserve it."
point.
Yeah, like they don't deserve it. Like, look at them. They're not that great. So I'm gonna be honest, I think I've had more jealousy, and it's because of the people who have figured out Reels and like have been growing their audience on Reels. I kid you not. I have to coach myself, Cheryl. I have to coach myself and I have gotten a lot of coaching because I'm like, I know this person. Like I know who they are. They're not that great. They have done bad things. Why do they get this viral audience? And I'm over here trying to help women of color heal their generational money trauma, and I can't get past 1,000 views on Reels. So that's actually how it's been presenting recently, where I was a small audience queen for so long. And now I have been trying to create an audience and I've been like documenting my journey. I've been going viral on TikTok, which has been giving me like restoring my hope and content again because it was crushed with Instagram because I know so many people are also having so much trouble on Instagram right now. But yeah, that's actually how it's presenting.
Looking back at the episode that we touched on earlier, when you think back at 2024, all the highs and lows that you've gone through, why is it that despite all the things that you were bombarded with, both business wise and in your personal life, why is it that you continue to keep going in your business?
It's so simple, Cheryl. So simple. I don't want to have a racist job. It's still, that's a very DL thing of saying, that's a very branded DL word, but I believe all jobs are racist, and the only way of having true freedom is if you have your own business. Um, that's what fuels a lot of me. I think this is important too. I have a very clear why now as well. And so in the past, I would really be struggling with I think after I made my first million. So I made my first million in 2022 and then 2023, 2024 were all $1 million years. After my first million, I stopped dreaming. I really stopped dreaming. I had bought in a house and I don't live in a mansion by any means. We got this house at the pandemic at a great rate. It's in bumfuck North Carolina. Like and it's literally, there's chickens next to us. Like it's not anything fancy, but it was such a big deal for my husband and I. We're both first generation homeowners. We're first generation wealth builders. We're first generation everything. And so I got the house. I made $1 million. I'm married. I travel, I have great friends, I can take care of my chronic illness and my health, I can afford things. What else could there be? And so I stopped dreaming, but recently I really decided that I want to be FIRE, financially independent, retire early. I have my FIRE number and I want to be able to just have a lot of financial flexibility if I want to take 6 months off of my business, if I want to do something, if I have a family, if I grow. If we grow our family here, I just wanted a lot of financial flexibility, but that took a while to figure out. And so something that I've been instilling in my clients is like always have a financial goal, or you will start to slip emotionally because your brain will be like, what's the point of all this? So have a personal financial goal or let your business just or take a break from your business, right? So I'm like, after I hit FIRE, there's not much after that. Like I could probably get into real estate or whatever, but there's not much after that. But it's like, yeah, then I might take 6 months off and I could afford to do that. But I think too, a lot of business owners feel stuck is because they feel stuck financially. So if you can even buy yourself some time too, that's even a goal you should be pursuing. So there's lots of goals that you can have, but I would say I decided to have a goal. I didn't want to go back to a 9 to 5 job, and I decided to have goals again for my company. I also have a few business goals too. Like I'm thinking about having some parts of my company turn into a media company where we have like a YouTube show that's a little bit more produced. And so I'm just getting more ideas on what type of business do I really want to have, which is exciting as well.
Ooh, I'm excited for that. Maybe potentially the media arm of your business. I'm very curious about how that will pan out. I'm excited for that part.
Yeah, yeah.
And even looking at the 2024 December DL who made that episode, what would like what would she feel about 3 months later, March 2025 DL? Like, what would she think of this version of you?
I think she would feel relieved that we got through it. Whenever you go through something difficult, you're like, is it ever going to end? Is it ever going to be over? And the answer is yes. And people told me this and I didn't believe them. But I promise you, you will go through it and you will be stronger. But I will say, I wouldn't have been able to do it without coaching, like getting coached and having other people who've gone before me say things to me, and I listen to them, and I listen to them.
And I think that's exactly what you were able to do in this conversation as well. You shared so many specific perspectives that I think a lot of people needed to hear. It's like a different perspective that they would have never considered had they not listened to this episode. So I really appreciate this conversation. Awesome. DL, where can people find you and or how can they work with you?
You can go to Dielle Charon on all platforms. I'm there on Instagram, on YouTube, on TikTok, all the places. And I would love to see you there. Thank you, Cheryl. And Cheryl, you're just an amazing host, and this was such a great conversation.
In 2023, I came across a social media post from a past client sharing their negative experience working with me. My immediate reaction was just pure shock because first, I thought we had a great relationship and they had also seen really great results while we worked together. And second, because they never communicated any of this to me directly, it never occurred to me just how much bottled up frustration they had been harboring. And so for weeks, I couldn't shake off the thought of what if they're right? What if I shouldn't be coaching or even talking on the internet at all? My mind spiraled. It was telling me that I wasn't qualified, that I was doing more harm than good, and that I should just shut everything down. My confidence as a creator and coach was deeply shaken. And honestly, I was scared. I was scared that my happy clients would turn against me. I was scared that my audience would suddenly find my work unhelpful or even trash. I was scared that maybe this past client's words had some truth. So for a while, I seriously contemplated quitting my business. But over time, I came to a realization. I need to give my people more credit. Specifically, the people who value my work are not blindly swayed by one opinion. They can critically think for themselves. And more importantly, I couldn't let one person's perception of me define everything. Because if I did, what would that mean for the people who do look up to my work, who do look up to me and feel positively impacted by what I do? Because ultimately, I cannot just let one person's negative comments define me. Because if I did, what message would that send to the people who sees my work as a source of hope and light? Right? What if my coaching or podcast was the push that someone needed to go after their dreams? Right? So if I had let one person's perception of me completely cripple me, what will that mean for everyone else who truly supports me and feel positively impacted by what I do? That said, I also acknowledge that receiving criticism, especially when it's unexpected, it hurts, right? Because deep down, part of me feared that there was truth to what they were saying. And of course, there are always lessons to be learned from feedback. This client's perspective was real and valid for them, and I never want to dismiss that. But over time, I was finally able to take a step back and start to look at, okay, where is their truth in what they're saying? And how can I use this as an opportunity to improve? What can I do differently to minimize similar experiences for future clients? And one realization I also had was that most of what this client had shared in their post, it was never communicated to me. They had never expressed those thoughts or feelings to me while we were working together. And I'm not a mind reader, right? So one takeaway specifically here was, how can I foster a culture in my coaching containers where clients feel safe and encouraged to share feedback with me? How can I make it clear that I genuinely welcome constructive input and care about their experience? And ultimately, criticism, especially when it comes from a client that you once worked with and you genuinely felt like you had a great working relationship with, it can feel so deeply personal, but it doesn't have to define you. Remember, your work matters. And for every person who may doubt you or have things to say about you, there are many more people who are positively impacted by what you do. So keep going. Sounds good? Awesome. Let's get to work. One more thing. If you thoroughly enjoyed this episode and are eager to continue the work, I would love to recommend you to grab the Podcast Content Audit. This is a resource I've crafted to help you audit 9 different parts of your podcast content strategy and identify the specific areas that you can improve on right away to start setting your podcast apart from the rest. The Podcast Content Audit follows our signature framework to building a differentiated and timeless body of work by number 1, becoming known for your thought leadership, number 2, creating immense value for your audience, and number 3, developing your signature voice. You can get the Podcast Content Audit at CherylLau.com/audit. Again, the link is CherylLau.com/audit. Sounds good? Awesome. Let's get to work.